fort.
1600 charter signed, Elizabeth gave the quill. East India Company born, private army, crown's will. Corporate with the fleet, corporate with the gun. Monopoly on trade from the Indus to the sun. Not the capital as Adam Smith will recognize. Armed extraction, market takes a body for the prize. Company made war, the company made law. Company was crown and the crown was the claw. Opium grown in Bengal, shipped to China by the ton. Emperor banned the poison, Britain sent the gun. First opium war, 1839. Free trade was the blade. Free trade meant the right to force addiction for the trade. Hong Kong taking ports blown open at the cannon's jaw. Healer was the government, the addict was the raw. Second opium war, 1856. Same drug, same fight. Original template was addiction as birthright. Corporate rights, the law funds the fleet. State complete, never asked who profits when crown and boardroom merge. Never question why the dealer wears the sovereign's bird. Need you hooked and conquered the original urge. First landlord wore a crown, kept ledger by the throne. First landlord wrote the law, called the colony alone. First landlord sold the poison, charged you for the cure. Hand that held the musket, held the deed, that's for sure. Company was government, government was trade. Company was the only god that conquered prey. 400 years, same house, new names on the door. Company dissolved in 1858, don't believe the end. Shareholders changed the signs, called the state their friend. British Raj picked up the ledger where the company ceased. Same plantation, same extraction, same imperial beast. Template spread to Belgium, Leopold's Conga death machine. Rubber corders paid in severed hands. Corporate regime to the Dutch East Indies, to the French and Indochine. Company never died, just rebranded what you've seen. Corporate rights, the law, funds the fleet. State complete, never asked who profits when crown and boardroom merge. Never question why the dealer wears the sovereign's verge. Need you hooked and conquered the original urge. First landlord wore a crown, kept ledger by the throne. First landlord wrote the law, called the colony alone. First landlord sold the poison, charged you for the cure. Hand that held the musket, held the deed, that's for sure. Company was government, government was trade. Company was the only god that conquered prey. 400 years, same house, new names on the door. East India Company stock traded on the London floor. Shareholders included king, archbishop, and the poor, who bought a share of opium they'd never have to taste. Original derivative was a body in the waste. First landlord wore a crown, crown was just a brand. First landlord wrote the law was just a hand. First landlord sold poison, called it commerce, called it trade. House that wrote the charter, wrote the graveyard that was made. Company never died, it just changed its face. Company in the boardroom, same language, same race. 400 years of ledgers, same family names. First landlord was a corporation that never changed. Opium became oxy, same drug, same design. Opium became the drug war, same profit, same line. Opium became the prison cell, same body, same chain. First landlord is the only landlord, rent remains. Odds, odds, odds. Pots, pots, pot, pot, pots. Pots. 1492 ships arrived with God, gold and germs. Some germs were not an accident, delivered on their terms. Forfeit 1763, Lord almost gives the words. Smallpox blankets to the Delaware by a war inferred. Pontiac's rebellion, crushed not by gun but by the spore. Body was the battlefield, body was the door. Trail of tears 1830, Jackson signs removing that Choctaw, Cherokee, Seminole, Creek Death contract.
Call us for 1879, kill Indians, save the man. Children stolen from the nations under Christian plan. Forced to speak the English tongue, beaten speaking their own. Thousands buried on the school grounds, graves are marked unknown. 500 treaties signed and broken, every single one. Supreme Court rulings ignoring, gold or oil would run. Black hills taken from Lakota after custom stand. Sacred land repossessed by the same invisible hand.
Treaty signed, treaty burned, handheld pen and torch. Never asked who profits when the sovereign nation scorched. Never questioned why the ruling law was overturned. Need you gone and buried so the land can be re-earned.
Land was not discovered, land was bought in blood. Land was not a purchase, land was taken in the flood. Land was not inherited, land cleared by German blade. House that signed the treaty, wrote the cemetery where you lay. Body is the deed and the deed is in the ground. Body is the only lease the landlord's ever found. Every broken treaty has a corporate signature beneath.
Manifest destiny, marketing campaign for theft. Railroad laid the track across bones of those they left. Union Pacific, Central Pacific, names on Charter 2. Corporate got the land grants, nations got the view. Atlantic to Pacific, every mile was someone's home. Now every mile is profit and profit set in stone. Doors act shatter tribal land to individual plots. Surplus went to settlers and the surplus went to lots. Treaty signed, treaty burned, handheld pen and torch. Never asked who profits when the sovereign nation scorched. Never questioned why the ruling law was overturned. Need you gone and buried so the land can be re-earned.
Land was not discovered, land was bought in blood. Land was not a purchase, land was taken in the flood. Land was not inherited, land cleared by German blade. House that signed the treaty, wrote the cemetery where you lay. Body is the deed and the deed is in the ground. broken treaty has a corporate signature beneath.
Fall around me 1868, Black Hills belong to Sioux. Gold discovered 6 years later, Custer's expedition flew. Supreme Court rule taken illegal in 1980. Awarded compensation, land remains with the same old lady.
Land was not discovered, land was sovereign and free. Land was not a purchase was the fried decree. Land was not inherited, inheritance was the lie. House that broke the treaty, wrote the extermination sign.
Body is the deed, but deed can be unburned. Body is the lease, but lease can be returned. Every broken treaty has a name on corporate seal. Land was always theirs, theft was never real.
Smallpox blanket to atomic test, downwind of native ground. Same laboratory logic, same body, same sound. Land remembers everything, landlord tried to hide. Land remembers, the land is on the other side.
Yo, yo.
Yo. Whoa, 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 yo. Whoa, 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 yo.
1932, Macon County, Alabama study starts to roll. 600 black men with syphilis never told. Penicillin was the cure, discovered in 47. Doctors withheld treatment, watched the disease leaven. 40 years the government injected, observed and took note. Recorded every lesion while the men were left afloat. Tuskegee syphilis experiment, name it, date it, count. Public health service ran it, the public was the fount. 1953, MK Ultra CIA opens up the mind. LSD on soldiers, prisoners, patients of every kind. Montreal's Allen Memorial, cameras the patterning ward. Electroshock, drug-induced comas funded by the Lord of Intelligence. The agency sworn to keep you free. Experimenting on the population secretly. Operation Paperclip brought Nazi scientists to state. Same men who experimented it in the camps now set the rate. Civilian is the lab rat, citizen is the test. Freedom is the consent they never request. Never asked to patent the chemical that's in the air. Never question why the government was funding the nightmare. They need you sick and studied so the data can compare.
Body is the laboratory,
The consent was never signed. Body is the laboratory, the experiment design. Body is the laboratory, and the lab coat wears a flag. Same house that ran the trial, wrote the epitaph, the tag. Injection is the profit, the reaction is the sale. Injection is the only oath, the doctors never fail. Population is the sample, and the sample never knew. Agent Orange, 1962 to 71. 20 million gallons over Vietnam beneath the sun. Dioxin in the water, dioxin in the womb. Birth defects across 3 generations in the tomb. A central endowed chemical, the contracts flow like wine. Same corporations that supply the war were shielded from the fine. Iran Contra 1985, White House sold the guns to Iran through Israel. Profits funded Contra's runs, yeah. Civilian is the lab rat, citizen is the test. Freedom is the consent they never request. Never asked to patent the chemical that's in the air. Never question why the government was funding the nightmare. They need you sick and study so the data can compare.
Body is the laboratory, the consent was never signed. Body is the laboratory, the experiment design. Body is the laboratory, and the lab coat wears a flag. Same house that ran the trial, wrote the epitaph, the tag. Injection is the profit, the reaction is the sale. Injection is the only oath, the doctors never fail. Population is the sample, and the sample never knew.
Cocaine flooded South Central while the CIA turned blind. Gary Webb proved the connection, they destroyed him for the fine. Dark Alliance 96 and Jose Mercury News. The agency that smuggled drugs blamed the users on the news.
Body is the laboratory, the lab report is so. Body is the laboratory, the experiment is real. Body is the laboratory, and the lab is everywhere. Same house that ran the trial now sells the antidote for care. Injection was the profit, injection was the plan. Injection was the only truth the needle never span. Population is the sample, and the sample's waking up. The body was a laboratory, now the body's had enough. Agent Orange to the opioid, same corporate line. MK Ultra to the algorithm, same control design. Tuskegee to the mandate, same consent unsaid. Body is the temple, and the temple is not dead.
Pop!
1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Rail Court. Reporters head note, not the rule and set the jail. Corporate got the rights the 14th Amendment gave to the free slave. Slave was not the one the court would save. Clerk's summary became law. No vote, no argument heard. Corporate now a person with the same protected word. Equal protection meant for flesh, blood, and bone. That shields the entity that never had a soul to own. 14th Amendment used by corporate more than freemen were. 1890 to 1910, the stats confirm the slur. 288 cases cited for corporate rights. 19 for black Americans denied the legal lights. Amendment meant to guard the former slave from southern law. Hijacked by the railroad barons gathering the straw. Same court that gutted black protection gave the corporate wings. Law is not a shield, it is a checkbook with strings.
Corporate is a person, money, speech. The check is voice, a man and born in blood became the CEO's choice. Never asked who benefits when corporate gets the vote. Never question why the fiction gets to wear the freedom coat.
Corporate is a fiction, illegal spelling ink. Corporate is a fiction, the fiction lets them think. Entity that poisons rivers has the same rights as you. Court that freed the fiction locked the human out of view. Santa Clara was a head note, shake the age. Santa Clara was the loophole, and loophole is the cage. Fiction has a birthday, the fiction has an end.
Citizens United 2010, the final lock on door. Corporate spends unlimited, dark money on the floor. Super PACs rise, donors' name is hidden in the shell. Candidate serves the money, the voter serves in hell. Fiction writes the legislation, fiction funds the race. Fiction runs the country, now the humans out of place. Same 5 justices who rule for speech unlimited. Funded by the dark pools, their rule and benefit.
Corporate is a person, money, speech. The check is voice, a man and born in blood became the CEO's choice. Never asked who benefits when corporate gets the vote. Never question why the fiction gets to wear the freedom coat.
Corporate is a fiction, illegal spelling ink. Corporate is a fiction, the fiction lets them think. Entity that poisons rivers has the same rights as you. Court that freed the fiction locked the human out of view. Santa Clara was a head note, shake the age. Santa Clara was the loophole, and loophole is the cage. Fiction has a birthday, the fiction has an end.
14's first line, persons born or naturalized. Freed slave was target, corporate capitalized. 500,000 businesses now claim the right to prey. Fiction born in error rules the human day to day.
Corporate is a fiction.
Fictions can be undone, we are audited. Corporate is a fiction, fiction's getting brittle.
Corporate is a fiction.
Not a person, not a soul. Court that made the fiction can revoke the fiction's role. Santa Clara was a head note, not the rule and not the law. Santa Clara was the loophole, now the loophole's got a flaw. Fiction has a birthday, and the fiction has an end. Fiction is a spell, and the spell is yours to amend. 14 was for the free, not the corporate need. 14 was for the bleeding, not the CEO's greed. 14 was for the humans taken back. Fiction dies when people learn the fiction's just an act.